Welcome back to the Boot Room, and today on 5 at 5, we're looking at the longest managerial stints of all time. Did you know that the shortest ever managerial stint was Leroy Rosenior, who lasted 10 minutes at Torquay before the club changed ownership? With 10 minutes, do you think Pep Guardiola could install a player out from the back philosophy with inverted wingers and a false number 9? I'm guessing not. But these 5 managers certainly had the time to install their tactics and a style of play that they wanted to see. They'd be pretty rubbish if they spent this amount of time without being able to do so. Number 5, Alex Ferguson, 1986 to 2013. Ferguson arrived in Manchester on the back of a successful time in Scotland. Aberdeen were in Europe, beating the likes of Bayern Munich and Real Madrid in the 80s. Ferguson took over from Man United and took them to new heights. There isn't enough space on the screen to type out all the trophies he won at Man United. He won it all at Man United, except the Europa League, but he let the club get on with that after he left. His strongest asset as a manager was adapting, and that's why he probably lasted as long as he did. Starting out with a core of solid players like Dennis Irwin, Gary Neville, Massimo Taibi, joke, obviously. But when the Galactico Chelsea era came around, he also adapted, signing big names when he needed to. Tevez, Van Persie, Wayne Rooney. Large outlays which kept Man United competitive and successful long term. Maybe the most prolific and successful manager on this list, Ferguson is possibly the best manager of all time, period. And as a City fan, that hurts so much to say. Mickey Evans, Carl Swiss, 1983 to 2007. Okay, the Welsh League is basically an unknown league. I always remember it for having a team called Airbus being involved and seeing it on teletext. And they were managed for 34 years by Mickey Evans. They were mostly a semi-professional outfit, and at points he even worked for an oil company at the same time. I don't condone oil drilling, but I do condone legendary managers, and Mickey certainly is one of them. He led the Welsh side to the Intertoto Cup in 2002, and he won 3 League Cups in Wales. 34 years at one club is crazy, let alone a club that didn't play in a major league in Europe. Bill Struth, Rangers, 1920 to 1954. Bill Struth managed Rangers for 34 years in the early years of the Glasgow club. 18 titles, 30 trophies in total. Most fans would say that Bill Struth made it special to play for Rangers, and he famously called them the premier club in Scotland to play for. Controversial to say the least. But Struth was devoted to Rangers, and he even lived in a small flat which overlooked Ibrox. He was a hands-on man manager of players. He even performed a minor surgery on one of his players who had a foot injury. Old school. He was so respected in Scottish football, his greenhouse, which was located in the Celtic part of Glasgow, was left untouched for years. That probably says it all. Willie Maley, 1897 to 1940. The only manager to manage in the 19th century on this list, Willie Maley managed the green side of Glasgow to 16 league titles and 28 domestic cups. This guy was the opposite of Bill Struth. He was very, very hands-off. Imagine showing up to training at Celtic and the manager never takes training, and he watches you play from the stands or even the director's box. On match day, he didn't even announce to the players who was playing, and they had to find out by reading the newspaper. But you can't fault this style of management, as he achieved some of the highest amounts of silverware in the history of football. He took over at Celtic at the age of 29 and developed Celtic's youth team and stopped the club signing as many players as they were before. Jose, look away now. It could be said that Bill Struth and Maley pushed each other on during this era, similarly to Wenger and Ferguson. And Celtic fans will always look back at the man who helped build the club to where it is now. Guy Roux, 1961 to 2005. Some of the managers on this list managed during eras where football maybe didn't change as much, and things were pretty settled in the world. For Guy Roux, who managed 44 years at Auxerre, with a 2-year pause in the middle of the 1960s, this guy took over when Winston Churchill had only just left government and JFK had been installed as the President of the United States. In football, you would have gone from a sport where players smoked at half-time and wore tiny shorts to the professional, highly commercial sport we have now. Imagine going from French domestic tournaments and leagues to winning the shambolic Intertoto Cup, which they did in 1997. Roux was the key manager in the early career of players like Cantona, Mexes, Tinu Taino, Laurent Blanc and Djibril Cissé. I wonder if he gave Cissé his haircut advice. But let's be honest, if I managed a Sunday League club for 44 years, I'd expect to come across at least one world-class player in my time. Winning leagues and playing in the Champions League for a small town like Auxerre is one thing. Managing 2,000 games is another. But wearing awful bobble hats on match days is another thing entirely. That's been our top 5 longest serving managers list. Who do you think could get close to that? If Bournemouth stay in the Premier League, maybe Eddie Howe will be manager when we land on Mars in 2030. Who knows? Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.